never have no motherfucking endo to smoke. I get smoked and loony. Bitch, you can't do me. Do we look like PPD? You hoochie poopy. I have no love for hoes. That's something that I learned from the pound. So how the fuck am I supposed to pay this hoe? Just the latest hoe. I know the pussy's mine. I'ma fuck a couple more times and then I'm through with it. There's nothing else to do with it. Pass it to the homie. Now you hit it. Cause she ain't nothing but a bitch to me. And y'all know that bitches ain't shit to me. I give a fuck. Why don't y'all pay attention? Approach it with a different proposition. I'm corrupt. Ho, you'll never be my only one. Trick ass bitch. That's when bitches get scandalous and full of voodoo. What you gon' do? You really don't know. So I'd advise you not to trust that hoe. Silly of me to fall in love with a bitch. Knowing damn well I'm too caught up with my grip. Now as the sun rotates and my head goes thick.
What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Big shout outs to everybody. Big shout outs to everybody. Yo, I'm gonna take this uptown again right quick. Shout out to Harlem. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Mean 12 D. Summer Breeze was good. Philly Phil, what up, Philly Phil? Okay. Donnell Porter. Young man had a life full ahead of him. He was the brother of Rich Porter. You know what I'm saying? And they was getting money in Harlem. Shout out to Gangsta Lou. Shout out to Killer Cav. Shout out to Queens Flip. They was getting money in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? And everything was moving smooth. You know what I'm saying? Rich Porter had an uncle named Johnny Apple Porter. Shout out to Patricia Porter. You know, ain't no glory in the story, but it's always respect. Always respect. Rest in peace to Al Pope. Shout out to his son, Pope. Lil Pope. Paparazzi Pope. There's never no glory in this story, but it's something to educate the minds and get the point across. Rich Porter was getting money in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? He was getting money up there. By the time he was 16, he was already buying new BMW cars. His life was cut short. You know, sometimes to the victors go to spoilers. Depends on how you define that. He had a son named Don. He had a little brother named Donnell Porter, and he had a sister named Pat Porter, Patricia Porter. All right. He had an uncle named Johnny Apple Porter. His mother's name was Velma Porter. Rest in peace, Mom. Johnny Apple was getting money when Rich was little. Johnny Apple basically taught Rich the game. So when Johnny Apple went to jail the first time and came home, Rich already grabbed the game. So Rich was giving him money to try to put him on, but Johnny Apple was getting high. He was a dope head, you know what I mean? Meth head, whatever you want to call it. He was using heroin, among other drugs as well, I think. And he was fucking his money up, excuse my mouth. You know? And Rich stopped giving him money. He instructed his workers not to give him money. There's a problem with that. Johnny Apple was working with Clarence Headley. Clarence Heatley, who was part of the preacher crew. He was the preacher crew. He was preaching. He headed a crew called the preacher crew. So when you stepped out of line with them, they get you in one of them buildings in the Bronx, and they shoot you in the head. Once they shoot you in the head, they cut up your body, and they distribute it inside garbage bags throughout the Bronx and Manhattan, the Bronx and Harlem. So they got tired of, they was trying to extort Rich. Rich wasn't giving them shit. Excuse my mouth. So Johnny Apple, now mind you, Johnny Apple never did time for his nephew dying, as I put it on the last video and I'm explaining it on this here video. He never did time for that. He became a witness. He became a witness because as he was snitching, preacher put out a hit on him. So when he was in the car, riding around in the car, they shot him. What saved him was he got shot at a light, and it was in front of a Catholic school, if I'm not mistaken. And the kids, the white little kids, crossing the street, and he jumped out and he ran in traffic, crossing guard there and everything. That's what saved him. So then he started turning states, talking to the district attorneys and the state attorneys about his nephew. How his nephew, it's a rumor that his nephew was a drug courier for Rich Porter. By then, Rich was like 24, 25 then. And his nephew was going to school one day. I don't know if he was a courier or not, but it's a girl who stated that he was getting money. Now, if he wasn't getting money, his brother was taking care of him. He didn't have to get money. He didn't have to be a courier. He didn't have to deliver nothing. His brother was taking care of him. So, of course, he wearing the freshest stuff. His brother was damn near self-made millionaire before he was 21. He didn't have to push nothing. But what ended up happening was he was going to school one day and they never seen him again. About 5, 6 o'clock that evening, they started getting phone calls. We want $250,000 if you want to see Donnell. So Rich's sister, Pat Porter, is the one that was speaking to him on the phone. They didn't believe it at first, but Donnell wasn't home. So then they got in touch with Rich. Rich came, he took the phone call. He like, oh. First he thought somebody was playing. Like, yo, what the fuck? Yo, what? So to prove they wasn't playing, they cut off his finger and told him to go to the McDonald's on 125th and Broadway. And that's where he went. What is that, Broadway, 8th Avenue, or 125th, between Broadway and 8th. So he went there. And they seen the tape recording, they seen the tape deck there, and his finger was in the cup. That's when they knew it was serious. So then they talked to the guy, like, yo. Now, Johnny Apple set this up. Did he cut off the guy's finger, the kid's finger? Allegedly, no. His partner that he was running with did. You fed your nephew to these guys. And then they seen their faces. He knew their faces. So they couldn't even let him come home even after they gave him the money. So Rich Porter, in the midst of trying to find his nephew, a brother named Fitz from lower part of Harlem, 104th Street, Spanish Harlem, which is the stomping grounds of Alpo himself. He come from the lower part. He fronted Rich some keys. Now Alpo found out about this here, and he feel away because he like, yo, why you ain't tell me about this? So Alpo gets Rich to ride with him in a van with a kid from DC named Little Gary. They go for a ride. Not too long after they started driving off in the car, they shot Rich Porter in the head. Bang. They shot him up in the car. And they drove him to the Bronx, to a place called Orchid Beach. I visited there years ago. Upon ready to drag him out the car and leave him in a desolate area, they noticed Rich was still alive, so they had to finish him. Bang, bang. You know? And years later, when Alpo went down himself, he told the story that he killed Rich. Because if Rich couldn't tell him about this to get the money back, who knows what he would have did. Should Rich have told Alpo to ask Alpo to help him? Maybe he was afraid because he figured with so much money, Alpo might kill him, which happened anyway. That's my opinion. Otherwise, he'd have went to him. Or he didn't know who kidnapped his nephew because the preacher crew was trying to put it out there that it was Alpo who did it. Nobody thought rich Uncle Johnny Apple would kill his own nephew. This came out years later when they was interviewing him, when the state attorneys and the district attorneys was interviewing him. Then years later, they went down for that murder. And then the guy that cut his finger off and ended his life because they were saying that when the cops went to Miss Porter's house and they said, "We found your son," they thought they was talking about Donnell because he was the one missing. They said, "No, Rich." That Porter shocked everybody. Rich. I just spoke to Rich. Well, you just spoke to Rich, but after you spoke to him, he went on that fateful ride with Alpo and his life was ended. Then 3 weeks later, they found the kid's body partly frozen. So they must have killed him already and put him in the freezer, good God, with the finger that was cut off. And they ended his life. So Velma Porter had 3 kids. Rich Porter, Patricia Porter, Donnell Porter. There's only one left now, and that's Patricia Pat Porter. May God bless her. She's a wonderful sister, you know what I mean? And for her to go through all this here, I commend her. Women like Michelle Griggs and Pat Porter ought to be idolized because you don't want to walk a mile in their shoes. You just don't want to. This is the Father here, coming back with some shit. I love you all. Peace.
Well, if corrupt gave a fuck about a bitch, I'd always be. Well, if corrupt gave a fuck about a bitch, I'd always be broke. I never have no motherfucking endo to smoke. I get smoked and loony. Bitch, you can't do me. Do we look like BPD? You hoochie groupie. I have no love for hoes. That's something that I learned from the pound. So how the fuck am I supposed to pay this hoe? Just the latest hoe. I know the pussy's mine. I'ma fuck a couple more times and then I'm through with it. There's nothing else to do with it. Pass it to the homie. Now you hit it. Cause she ain't nothing but a bitch to me. And y'all know that bitches ain't shit to me. I give a fuck. Why don't y'all pay attention? Approach it with a different proposition. I'm corrupt. Oh, you'll never be my only one. Trick ass bitch. Niggas do too, cause when bitches get scandalous and pull a voodoo, what you gon' do? You really don't know. So I'd advise you not to trust that hoe. Silly of me to fall in love with a bitch. Knowing damn well once you caught up with my grip, now as the sun rotates and my head grows thick.